A widespread disruption around the world. Thousands of computers go down in yet another large-scale cyber attack targeting companies. But what does it take to stop attacks like these? And will it get worse before it gets better? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Richelle Carey. Cybersecurity has become one of the most important aspects of life in the 21st century, which means keeping computer systems secure becomes paramount for governments and companies. Now, a major cyber attack that began in Ukraine has crippled computer systems around the world. It shut down government agencies and impacted thousands of businesses from India to Denmark. It's linked to the so-called WannaCry ransomware, a virus that holds data hostage until a payment is made. We have a lot to talk about with our guests in a moment. First, though, this report from Neve Barker.
The virus first appeared in Ukraine. Every infected computer carried the same message. If you see this text, it said your files are no longer accessible because they've been encrypted. The message then demands payment to recover data. Kiev's international airport, the country's state energy provider, and several major banks all reported problems with their computer systems. The country's Security Council is blaming Moscow.
It's unprecedented cyber attack that Ukraine never have faced before. The cyber police received more than 200 reports about interferences in computers with the damaging software.
But in neighboring Russia, the state oil giant Rosneft said it too had been hacked. Elsewhere, the Danish shipping firm Maersk, the British ad agency WPP, and a French construction firm are among a growing list of companies hit by the virus that's now believed to be heading to the United States. Experts are divided on the origin of the virus. Some say they've never seen it before, while others say the infection is a strain of ransomware called Petya, first identified last year.
It's a very well-known piece of ransomware. Now, what's different about this current outbreak is some of the tactics used in the recent WannaCry attack, basically being able to spread like a worm, has been incorporated into Petya, meaning that it's very, very quickly spreading across the globe, infecting systems with this ransomware.
The attack's reminiscent of last month's WannaCry virus that infected more than 200,000 computers in more than 150 countries. The virus caused major disruption to the UK's National Health Service before being stopped by a British security advisor. Cyber experts are now scrambling to understand the scope of this latest attack. Neve Barker, Al Jazeera.
As we mentioned earlier, this latest attack is linked to the so-called WannaCry ransomware, which first spread in May and is known for shutting down computers belonging to the UK's National Health Service. But its effect has spread rapidly around the world, impacting hundreds of thousands of computers in more than 150 countries. The virus makes use of a loophole in Microsoft encrypting data and demands ransom to resume access to computer systems. Experts believe hackers used tools developed by the U.S. National Security Agency that were leaked on the internet. Let's bring in our guest now in Athens. Antonis Michalas, a cybersecurity expert and head of the cybersecurity group at the Department of Computer Science at the University of Westminster. In Washington, Patrick Flynn, director of national security programs. And in Vienna, joining us via Skype, Neil Walsh, chief of the United Nations Global Program on Cybercrime. Welcome to all of you. Antonis, I'm going to start with you. It seems that we have been here before. Is this attack more potent than what happened a few weeks ago with WannaCry?
So both attacks, I mean, they have the same concept, right? Both of them are ransomware attacks, which means that hackers, they try to encrypt users' data, legitimate users' data, and then ask a ransom in order to decrypt the data. However, there is a big difference between the WannaCry attack and yesterday's attack. More precisely, the Petya attack is much more professional, which means that the attack has been designed from users, from hackers that they are really professional, not like WannaCry. To put things simple, WannaCry had what we call a kill switch, which allowed the user to basically deactivate the entire malicious software even from a remote location. While with this attack that we are seeing now, this is not possible. Apart from that, we believe that even if some users have already updated their machines, their Windows computers, they can still get infected. Because Petya, basically what it can do is, if a device that has been already patched, which means that in theory it is secure, is connected to the same network with a non-patched device, then basically the non-patched device can infect the updated device, which is basically very powerful attack, because even if an organization like NHS, for example, make sure that they update most of their computers, they can't be sure that some computers that will not be affected.
Patrick, it almost sounds like he's describing, I don't know, like herd immunity almost when it comes to, people, and everyone needs to be immunized to make sure that some sort of disease doesn't come back. Explain to me, apparently everyone did not take advantage of this patch. First of all, explain what a patch is for someone that doesn't know, and then why wouldn't every company immediately start using it?
Essentially, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be on your show, but a patch is the fix. It's the DAT file that we have to put in place to be able to fix the problem. But I think this is a good representation of why you have to constantly evolve with cyber solutions. With WannaCry, it was widespread, and it enabled us to fix these issues with the Microsoft operating system. But it also made us very, very aware of how we have to evolve as a user. How do we monitor things? How do we update our even from our computers at home to our enterprise software to be able to accommodate and protect us with this protections. I think one of the things that I want to leave you with is as we evolve, they evolve with us, and they create opportunities to where they're going to attack even further. And I think this is a good representation of that.
So is a patch simply a fix? Am I oversimplifying it? Is that what a patch is? Patrick?
Yes, essentially, they are trying to take advantage, or you're trying to fix that area of the code that they exploited. Yeah, I don't think you're oversimplifying. I think just in a layman's term, that's the best way I know how to explain it.
Neil, this patch, if I'm correct, this patch from Microsoft has actually been around for a few months now. Why wouldn't everybody have taken advantage of it?
It's a really good question. One of the biggest challenges that we see in any government around the world is having the capability to update all of the systems, every computer, every server, in every government department, in hospitals, and then for business to do exactly the same. So simply the scale of it is exceptionally challenging to deal with at once.
So, Antonis, if you are one of these companies that has been attacked, one of these entities that has been attacked, what are you doing right now?
Once the attack have been launched, things are getting too complicated, which means that if you want to return to your previous state, let's say a state that everything was working perfectly and everything was trusted, it can be very challenging. So every company needs to have basically a recovery plan, what we call maybe a disaster recovery plan. So how they will react if an attack is launched. So this can contain multiple things. For example, they keep a version control, they keep multiple backups, and so on. However, the most important thing, in my opinion, is that companies, they need to build their software and their infrastructure in such a way that they will avoid attacks. This is quite complicated because it's not only how to build the software in a secure or privacy-preserving way, but also is how you will train your employees in order to have some kind of at least basic knowledge about cybersecurity and the incidents that might happen. Because what happened with WannaCry and NHS, if employees there, they had updated their systems, then the attack wouldn't have happened.
Patrick, Antonis is talking about training employees. Is this a matter of how smart somebody is, or is it a lot more complicated than that?
I think it's just practicing good cyber hygiene. It's just you could be my daughter sitting in front of her computer, and she boots this thing up, and you're asked to update your system. You should do it. I think it's too much of the attitude that we're treating cybersecurity as a backroom function. It shouldn't be that way. This should be a part. This should be a part of your everyday life. When you're on your BlackBerry or your iPhone or your any edge device, you should be able to understand that those folks are trying to come after you in a lot of different ways, and you should practice good cyber hygiene. I think if I left you with anything, that alone is probably one of the most significant things we can do as individuals as well as enterprise to ensure that we increase our readiness to deal with instances like this.
I actually think you do make a very good point, because we've all gotten those updates that sometimes we don't want to deal with. We don't want to take the time to do it or to reboot our system. And I guess You're saying that those updates aren't frivolous. There's actually a point. There's a reason that we get them.
Yeah, they're not meant to be a pain in the butt, so to speak. You need to execute those files, and it doesn't take that long. It's just a kind of an attitude that you have to have going into your day, or you're starting your day to ensure that how you operate on the internet is safe.
Neil, this hacking tool, Eternal Blue, where does it fit into this equation?
I think what we see with so many attacks like this is that criminals will take the opportunity to use other methods of attack that are already available out there. So it's the same with WannaCry, and potentially with today as well, that exploits, gaps in software, gaps in systems that Patrick was talking about, are then weaponized, so to speak, where ransomware is inserted within them, and then they become so widely spread so very, very quickly that it creates some risk. So whenever we see vulnerabilities in software like this, it's critical that companies and governments work together to try and minimize those as swiftly as possible.
Okay, and you're talking about governments, but this hacking tool, Eternal Blue, it came from the NSA. It came from the National Security Agency. What would be the benefit of an agency creating something like that?
I think that's a question, Richelle, you'd have to ask the NSA or someone perhaps the US government. But I think if I take the general premise that we want to see the internet used for good, for prosperity, for building economies, and that's why it's so important for governments to work together to try and minimize these sorts of risks. We've seen with WannaCry, the chaos that it causes once it's let out there into the general public.
Antonis, and Neil makes a good point. These are questions to put to the NSA, but I want to put this one to you. Does the NSA have a duty, a responsibility to be warning companies about this, to be helping companies with this, if this is possibly the result of their creation?
Exactly. So what happened with NSA and the Eternal Blue exploitation, basically they found this exploit many years ago. So what they could have done was to contact Microsoft and inform Microsoft about this vulnerability. So they could have go to Microsoft and say, look, we analyzed your system, as we basically do in our daily life, and we found this flaw. You need to fix it in order to protect your users, right? However, they didn't do that. What they decided to do is to create a powerful arsenal of malicious tools in order to control devices that they were running certain versions of Windows. So while NSA wants to enjoy, let's say, the power of controlling different devices in order, for example, to prevent possible terrorist attacks or to investigate crimes, they have also some responsibilities, very serious responsibilities, I would say. And this is that when they create exploits and they create malicious tools, they need to make sure that they store them in an isolated and fully secure environment. Because if they cannot do that, then we will be seeing many more cyber attacks like the WannaCry and all these cyber attacks that we see the last weeks.
Patrick, can one person unleash all of this, or is it a team of people? How do these things work?
It's a criminal act. There's no other way to look at it. It could be one person. It could be my daughter, for crying out loud. But yeah, it should scare people, and it's a criminal act, and we should be able to protect ourselves accordingly. So it's one of those things that you're going to have to deal with in today's cyber realities. So it is something that enterprises have to contend with, from the largest banks to companies that deal with the power grid, to our local consumer bases. It should, in a healthy way, keep you up at night to make sure that you protect your data as well as your hardware that you operate on. There's no other way to really look at it. It's bad things happen.
Neil, Dave Barker mentioned this in his report, that what comes up on your screen, if in fact your computer becomes infected, it says, if you see this text, then your files are no longer accessible because they have been encrypted. Perhaps you are busy looking for a way to recover your files. Don't waste your time. And then it goes on to ask for money. There seems to be almost a taunting in that. Help me get in the mind of a hacker. What motivates a hacker?
Yeah, a great question. And I think what we see with ransomware, like all organized crime, it's there to make a profit. It's there to make money. The whole concept behind it is to socially engineer the victims, to make you do something that you wouldn't wish to do. So they want you to pay maybe $300 or $400 worth in Bitcoin to them. So they make a profit, and then you may, and I say may, get the decryption key to get your files back. But that's a false premise. This is an entirely criminal transaction. It is people trying to extort money from you, and you have no guarantee that if you pay them, you will get your files back. Which is why our recommendation, and it fits with what your other guests are saying, is back up your data, update your software, have good malware and antivirus capability on your computer. Most importantly, have that backup of your data, because if you become a victim of ransomware, you can't be held to ransom for data that you already hold elsewhere. You can simply rebuild your computer and start again.
So certainly, certainly there seems to be a monetary aspect to some of this when you're talking about a crime like this. But Antonis, I'd be curious to know, is there also a political motivation sometimes, or can there be like a group of people that everybody involved has different reasons for why they're doing it?
Yeah, I agree that they can be political. We have seen this many times with Anonymous, for example, that they have done different kinds of attacks, but they are doing cyber attacks for pure political reasons. However, with the ransomware attacks, I'm afraid that the motivation is totally different. I might be wrong, but if we think about it carefully, what they ask is they ask users to pay via Bitcoins, right? So Bitcoin, now the price of Bitcoin nowadays is around $2,300 for one Bitcoin, right? If you read the predictions for the future, they are saying that Bitcoin has the potential to reach the price of $100,000 just for one Bitcoin. And if we think about what happened in the past, like when Bitcoin started being in the market, it was extremely cheap, which means that if someone basically was putting just $100 to buy Bitcoins, nowadays he could have earned $70 million. So what I was thinking is that if people manage to get, let's say, 100 Bitcoins, then after some years, they might be millionaires. So I don't think that this is a pure political attack.
Okay, all right, that's actually a pretty interesting theory. Patrick, do you think, when we talk about this as a criminal enterprise, do you think that various governments, police agencies, whatever, are devoting enough resources to this, considering it seems to keep happening, and considering it seems that for the past 10 or 15 years, there were people predicting that cyber war was the future?
I think they're making good strides in the way they're doing it in most countries. I know for a fact that they're starting to share information more widely and more proactively. A case in point is WannaCry, as well as this Petya variant. They're very much engaged in making sure that they're aware, as they protect government systems and other entities or provide advice to other entities, that they're aware of what the commercial industry is seeing. Oftentimes we have a better look at things, it's through global threat intelligence networks and the way we share information out to our the millions of endpoints that we're responsible for in a day, and providing that input into whomever needs it to be able to make sure that the proper mitigation measures are put in place.
Neil, how important is it for countries to talk about this? Countries got together to deal with climate change as one unit. How important is it for countries to be on the same page as something like this, especially when, sometimes, you could be that one person that can stop this from going to the next computer?
Yeah, it's the key to a lot of this is international cooperation. And here at the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, we help countries to do that. So back in April of this year, we had an intergovernmental meeting, over 90 countries present at that, to discuss exactly these sorts of issues. How do countries cooperate? How do they work together? And just this morning, I was briefing over 40 countries on the capabilities that other organizations like Interpol, Europol, and places like Patrick represent in terms of how to work together and how to mitigate this sort of threat. But sitting below all of this is a recognition across countries at prime ministerial and presidential level of the need for a strong, robust cybersecurity strategy, and also across business as well. There are so many people have to play their role in this, and in our place at the UN, we're doing our best to bring them together.
Neil, if that doesn't happen, how much more dangerous can this become?
Yeah, I think it's as the threat evolves, like any sort of threat, in some ways it's difficult to predict. But if we look, for example, say there was a significant cyber attack on the financial institutions of a developing country, and you have ransomware that's encrypted a central bank or a mechanism for sharing critical national information. If there is no backup in place for doing that, then it could be exceptionally difficult for a country to recover, and you start to see state-level impact where things don't work anymore. So that's why I think diplomacy is key to this, to help countries work together to minimize threat, but also to make sure that capacity building and technical assistance for law enforcement, government as a whole, and business to try and target harden themselves, minimize that risk, so that when there are software exploits that are discovered, then the opportunities for cyber criminals to do something with that are as low as possible.
Antonis, right now, is there a hacker somewhere trying to outdo the damage that this most recent attack has done?
Well, I guess that this is happening every day. I mean, there are many either individual hackers or big teams that basically they try to, exploit certain vulnerabilities in existing systems, either operating systems or online systems like banks, e-health services, and basically when they manage to find a vulnerability, then they try to get the most out of it. Depends if it is a political or they want to do a political attack, or just they want to earn money, or they can just do it for fun. So yeah, I'm sure that there are many people that they are currently trying to make more attacks like this ones.
Patrick, I'm going to let you have the last word, because I think you all have said really important things, but I think that one of the things you said that people should really resonate: don't ignore the updates that are coming with your equipment. Tell us again really how much of a difference that can make.
If 1 out of 3 individuals goes to their computer and just dedicates themselves to making sure that their computers or their computers within their household alone, or if they're a cybersecurity a practitioner or just an employee of a company, if they make sure that their inputs are up to date, that's, I would probably say, half the battle. One of the things that, until we create the ability to hire more cyber professionals, we have to rely in a technological sense on automation and information sharing. So one of the things that I want to leave you with is how we push information out has to happen in cyber time. How we provide that has to happen in machine time, and to be able to counteract the ability of these hackers to outmaneuver us as we protect our networks.
Everybody needs to do their part. Gentlemen, thank you very much for this conversation. I appreciate it. Thanks to all of our guests, Antonis Michalas, Patrick Flynn, and Neil Walsh. And thank you for watching. You can see the program again anytime if you visit our website, aljazeera.com. For further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Richelle, Carey, the entire team. Bye for now.